Now, a purported ransom note for Nancy Guthrie demanded payment in Bitcoin. And yesterday, TMZ reported activity in a Bitcoin account connected to a ransom note. Let's bring in Ben Weiss, a crypto reporter for Fortune magazine, to talk more about the role of Bitcoin in this investigation. Ben, thanks so much for being with us. Can you talk to us about the mechanics, though, of buying and transferring cryptocurrency? If Savannah Guthrie's family doesn't own Bitcoin or some kind of crypto coin, how would she make that deposit into the kidnapper's account? Does it work like Venmo?
Yeah, it's a good question. So basically, like, Bitcoin was invented basically 15 years ago, and in the beginning was super hard to buy and sell and use the cryptocurrency. Now it's become much easier. So if Savannah's family wanted to pay the person behind the ransom note, what they could do is just, it's kind of like Venmo, but a bit more complicated because you have to use these complicated strings of just random letters and numbers together. And that's kind of your username, as opposed to like my username, which, this isn't real, but, Ben-Weiss. So you can go through a crypto exchange, cash in some US dollars, get some Bitcoin, transfer that to kind of like a wallet, almost like Venmo, and send it to this Bitcoin address.
There's a couple more steps involved as opposed to, say, Venmo, which is just a simple transaction.
Yeah.
Bitcoin, we know, is popular with criminals because your identity is, as you said, a series of letters and numbers. But is there a way investigators can use a string of letters and numbers and gain small bits of information about the account holders?
Yeah. So again, like historically, criminals flocked to Bitcoin because they thought it was anonymous, right? But what's happened over the past few years is that there are these blockchain whizzes that can look at the networks of transactions, and they can also look at the transactions and often see where they're coming from. So, maybe there's a transaction near Tucson or something, and they're like, oh, that's maybe related to the ransom note. So there are some clues you can do. You can get by looking at the blockchain and looking at that data. That can help investigators if they're trying to use the Bitcoin wallet transactions as a lead in the investigation.
I'm curious if there's a moment during that transaction, or if somebody tries to cash out their Bitcoin, does their identity become more clear if they try to take that money out?
Yeah, so Bitcoin isn't used everywhere. So if you want to use Bitcoin maybe to buy groceries or to go to a gas station and get some gas, you're going to have to usually cash that out into US dollars. It's that step of going from Bitcoin to USD or US dollars that can help investigators, because usually you have to go through a crypto exchange to do that. And if you go through a crypto exchange, they're going to do a KYC on you, which is basically a know your customer. So they collect a photo ID, your name, other pertinent information. So investigators can look at the blockchain, see that someone transferred, say, the money from the ransom note to a crypto exchange, and then they can go to that crypto exchange and often subpoena them for that customer information. And crypto exchanges usually do this very willingly. They have a bunch of compliance staff that help them out with these law enforcement requests.
So I'm curious, Ben, how is TMZ monitoring this activity between these different accounts? Can you talk about how these different websites where people can view crypto transactions, and how do those websites work?
Yeah, so, going back to the example of Venmo, you can make your Venmo transaction history private. But with Bitcoin transactions, if I know the address, the random string of letters and numbers, anyone in the world can go on a website, they're called block explorers, and just look at the address and see what that address is doing. They won't know the identity of the person behind it, but they can see the money flows in and out of there. So presumably TMZ they must have the address from the ransom note, and they're probably just looking at it. Or you can set up, there are blockchain, there are crypto traders that literally send alerts for when money moves in and out of these long strings of numbers. So yeah, it's very likely that they're just probably refreshing the website and seeing what's changing.
Ben Weiss, thank you so much for that insight.
Yeah, thank you.
Meanwhile, authorities are asking anyone with information in the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie to contact the FBI tip line. That number's there on your screen, 1-800-CALL-FBI.